The problem is that she's part of a system that is encouraging that. She's part of a system that is telling her to do that. And so I think we've got to tell a better story. We must have vision. I stole this picture again right off of Flickr, and the caption at the time said, "Look at my beautiful new classroom." Well, apparently, blue legs passes for new these days. There's nice natural light. It seems to got the vaulted ceilings, but that's about it, right? I don't know what makes that new. So how are we going to get there? The first thing that I think is important is we have to understand that we must build caring institutions, and I don't know how you do that at 40 or 50 children per student. You can't care on the fly. You have to understand that there is a profound difference between the statement, "I teach physics," and "I teach kids physics." Children should never be the implied object of their own education. Nell Noddings writes about the idea of the difference between caring about and caring for. It's easy to care about someone. It's harder to care for them. Yesterday, Zach and I almost missed our flight because as we were getting ready to, as I was doing my last walkthroughs of the day, as I was just trying to be in classrooms, one of our kids came to us. And she's one of the children of the many who have our heart. She's HIV positive. She was born that way. And she came to me and she said, "I've stopped taking my meds again." Do you think the classroom that she was in mattered at that moment? Do you think whatever topic they were studying was of importance? So I quickly gathered the adults in her life at the school who she is closest to, which I am lucky enough to say included me, which I am honored by and humbled by. And I pulled them away from what they were doing, and we talked to her. Zach and I occasionally nervously looking down, what's plan B? And what we heard from her was that for the first time in her life, at age 17, she could articulate that every pill she took brought up the anger that she had at her parents for doing this to her. It was the first time she could utter those words. Is there anything in the curriculum more important than her ability to utter those words and make sense of that? Is there anything more important for a school to, when that happens, clear the deck? And because we have the faculty, because we have the pedagogy, because we make the time, we could make sure that she has the access to the resources she needs to deal with that first statement. Because what we said to her was, okay, that's the first statement. And yes, you needed to make it. But the hard work comes now. And so today will be day one of her taking her meds again. And she will have the adults in the school go to her every day and say, what day is it? And we will know. That's what it means to teach children before you teach subjects. Because that can't be in a job description of a history teacher or an English teacher. I also think schools need to be inquiry-driven. And I don't think that means just asking questions that we know the answers to. Inquiry means asking questions we don't know the answers to. Inquiry means daring kids to find themselves in the subjects that we teach. Not surprisingly, that same student oftentimes finds ways to relate science, to relate English, to relate history to HIV and her life. We've created opportunities for her through internships to work in AIDS clinics, to work with young people, to teach them how to take care of themselves, even when she doesn't always do a great job of doing it herself. We have to ask profound questions. They have to ask profound questions. Inquiry is not Socratic method. Inquiry isn't, look how smart I am to ask questions, and then you students, you give me the answers. Inquiry-based teaching is when they ask the questions, when they seek out the answers. Because it isn't about us. It is about them. Now that being said, those folks who say that we don't need as many teachers, we don't need them as much, computers can do it better, are crazy and wrong and dangerous. Kids need adults in their lives. Desperately. Kids need adults more than ever. The world, social media, I'm the biggest fan in the world. My gosh, I'm on Facebook and Twitter and you name it. But that can be solipsistic too. And as much as that can connect us, that can isolate us. And adults are oftentimes the one who can breathe oxygen into that room. Adults are the ones who can lend the hand, who can be on the other end of that conversation, who can do those things. And as much as, I believe in blended learning, and I do every class at SLA as a blended class, happening both on and offline, nothing replaces the ability to have a teacher who meets you at the door every class period with a hug. And that's important. We also have to understand that we can learn from many. Schools used to be black boxes. You showed up twice a year for parent-teacher night, or maybe you went to a basketball game or two, or a play, or a recital. But otherwise, schools just sort of happened. We can understand now, and communities had a hard time working with schools because they happened during work hours. So how could you volunteer in school? You were working. Well, that's not true anymore. I already talked about the cyber mentoring project, right? Most people can help a ninth grader with their writing. Why not let them? If you're reading a book of a living author, why not Skype with them? If you're studying a subject in science, why not ask a local university professor to give 20 minutes through a virtual chat? If you're doing something in one school, why not do it in another? Community, we can learn from many. An amazing experience that happened with one of our colleagues back, and it's an old story now, but I still love it. In the 2008 election, we partnered with a school in Texas. And on election day, our kids went all over Philadelphia and captured the images of the election and captured the stories of the election. Now you can imagine Philadelphia votes about 90% Democratic. Philadelphia also is about 50%, 47% African American. You can imagine the stories that were told that day of the election. And that's a profound experience for kids to have that, to capture the oral history of that day. It was made even more powerful when they collaborated with a school in rural Texas that had almost no African American population, had a small Hispanic population, mostly white, and voted overwhelmingly for John McCain. And when they heard those stories told and listened to those students and listened to their experiences and listened to the stories and the voices and the ideas and the pictures and the images of the adults in that town, the way they viewed their own experience of that election was profoundly changed. We can learn from many.